Well, this has been a weird season, hasn't it? Um, Game just wrapped up about 15 minutes ago. Seahawks win what ended up being a nail biter. 10 wins, division crown, NFC West champions, and a home playoff game next week. That all sounds pretty good. A lot of teams would trade to be that. A lot of teams would love to be a 10-win team that wins their division and gets to play in the playoffs, but keeping that in mind, you watch this team from week to week, and it is bizarre the things that this team will do in these games. I don't know if those two Super Bowl seasons made our expectations unrealistically high and unfairly high, but sometimes I watch this team and I just don't get it. So, let's just talk about this game because I thought this game was very emblematic of the season we've had. 25-23, we go into San Francisco, one of the worst teams in football, probably the second worst team in football, and it's not easy. It's not even a fun game to watch for the most part. And then we gut it out by running out the clock on a last-minute drive. It's all right. Where do we even start? Defense. Defense starts this game as bad as I have ever seen them, against an offense that has nothing going for them, an offense that this whole season has been absolutely horrible, completely incapable. And I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background. That's my sugar glider. Sorry about that. If you can hear that, they're spitting in their hands to clean themselves. That's what they do. Yeah. It was amazing how bad this defense looked in that first quarter and a half. Colin Kaepernick completed his first 10 passes. Sean Drone was busting off 8-yard runs, 9-yard runs, 10-yard runs, just grinding on our defense. Gave up 2 quick touchdowns. Our only stop came on a drive where Kaepernick dropped the ball, or Drone dropped the ball. Somebody just fumbled. Nobody forced it. It just popped out. And this really looked like the game where we could finally say that Pete Carroll was really starting to lose this team. And I'm still not 100% sure that he hasn't, but giving him the benefit of the doubt for a moment, the start of this game looked like he was just losing his ability to get these guys to compete. Because that's his thing, always compete. You know, you're always going to compete no matter what the situation is, no matter if you have everything locked up, no matter if you're playing backups and third stringers, always compete. It looked like the game where we finally lost that because we were getting no pass rush. We weren't covering receivers. They were running a pretty simple dink and dunk short offense, and we could do nothing to stop it. We couldn't stop the run. Everything was terrible for those first couple drives where they drove down and just had their way with our defense. And after that, the defense locked down, and they didn't just look good. They looked like the best defense in football again for a little while. Bennett had a sack. Frank Clark had a sack. Bobby Wagner had a couple. KJ Wright had a sack. Frank Clark, by the way, gets to 10 sacks on the season. Huge shout out to him. He was one of the best parts of this season for me. A second-round pick who we didn't know if we were ever going to get anything out of him because of his legal problems. Just absolutely has a breakout second season and looks like he's going to be part of this team for as long as we're able to keep him around, because that is a very talented and capable pass rusher. And he, had tackles for loss today. He had pressures. He had forced fumbles and fumble recoveries. He did it all today. Yeah, and the defense absolutely locked down for about a quarter and a half. And then in the fourth quarter, again, the pass rush dissipates. We give up a couple big plays in the passing game. We give up a couple of decent runs. We give up the touchdown, and suddenly the end of the game is dramatic again. And the defensive unit on this team has, for the most part, this season been very good. But these last 2 games, man, I know Earl's out. I know that's a big, big problem. I know not having Earl sucks, but oh man, I can't believe he was this important to the point where Sometimes we look like we don't belong on the field with a team as bad as the 49ers. I'm sorry, but that shit ain't right. Um, Jerron Reed, he got tossed on a special teams play. I'll voice my irritation with that some other time. I have no idea what he did, by the way. They showed the replay a couple times. I have no idea what he did. There are guys that you can call out for doing really well today. Reuben forced a huge fumble. Bobby Wagner had a monster day. KJ Wright played well. I thought Cam Chancellor played pretty well. But the inconsistency against teams that are not very good these last two games makes me really concerned going into the playoffs next week. So that's the defense. I can't even lean on those guys for any level of, reliability. I can't. It's very surreal right now not being able to say, well, at least the defense did their thing. Offense, it's the same stuff. Sometimes you want to just hug them, man. Sometimes they look so good. Russell Wilson throwing up that, jump ball to Jimmy Graham at the 1-yard line, and Jimmy Graham does what he can do that nobody can do anything about. He just goes up and boxes out, and he makes a 40-yard catch that very few other players in the league can do. And there's nothing anybody can do about it. Doug Baldwin had one big catch in today's game. Not exactly a monster game for him. Jermaine Kearse had the arm stretching, tips of his fingers catch. That was great. Luke Wilson got in the end zone again. Paul Richardson looked good on a couple of plays. Alex Collins, I've been here and I've been here with the guy. Sometimes he's looked pretty good. Other times he looks like he's not ready to play in the NFL this season. But today, good. But the body of work is so frustrating. The run blocking, oh my God. We can't run the ball against the 49ers. I don't think I could sum up how pathetic that is if you gave me 15 minutes to just talk about that. This is a 49ers team that we ran all over in week 3. This is a team that was giving up 100-yard games to everybody they were playing. And we can't even mount a semblance of a running game against them until basically midway through the third quarter. Thomas Rawls never had a chance to get anything going in this game. I will say Russell Wilson clearly not 100% in terms of running the ball. He can't cut like he did last season. Still dealing with that high ankle sprain, I'm sure, which it's not going to go away until the end of the season. So that doesn't help. But you can't run the ball against the 49ers. You see that, and it's just so disheartening because you just know, how are you going to run the ball against anybody if you can't run the ball against the 49ers? Wilson, missing throws. Sometimes he looks great, but, he misses an easy third down conversion to Jimmy Graham on the first drive. He misses a couple of deep shots to Baldwin and Graham and Kearse where he had touchdowns probably. He was never this inaccurate before this season. Even his rookie season, I think, maybe that's comparable even. If you look at the numbers, it's pretty comparable. But the inaccuracy of Russell Wilson this season, I feel like, was something that just didn't happen last year or the year before, or even going all the way back to his rookie season. It's very strange, and I feel like maybe the injury messed up his mechanics a little bit. But he's been fairly healthy, at least 90% healthy for a while now. Jermaine Kearse, 7 targets, 2 receptions. I gave him credit for the one good catch he had in this game, but then I look at the body of work and I'm like, why? Paul Richardson, Tanner McAvoy, they're all doing more with their targets than Jermaine Kearse, it feels like right now. Luke Wilson, too. I'll even throw Luke Wilson in, especially after the game he had today. But he keeps getting thrown at, and he keeps not doing anything with the targets that he receives. Pass protection was better today, but you're playing the 49ers, so I don't know how I can feel about that. Offensive line was a little better today, but that's not going to do you any good next week against what I'm assuming is the Detroit Lions. So it's hard to feel too good about it. I mean, we put up 25 points in San Francisco. That's okay, but we got a lot of points off turnovers. We had the opportunity to put touchdowns on the board, and we just can't finish drives, so we're kicking field goals. You know that's not going to fly against Detroit next week, or Green Bay, which even more so Green Bay. And then, of course, things just get weird at the end of the game with Boykin coming in for the last 2 drives and actually looked really good on the last drive to help us seal the game, but it was like we didn't care if we won, which is understandable, but at the same time, it's like you're clearly out there and you're up and you need a couple first downs to preserve the game, and you just have all your backups in terms of skill positions, and it's just very, very strange. It's just the perfect way to end a very, very weird season. So that's offense and defense. I'm not going to even really get into the special teams too much, but there is not a single special teams player on this team that hasn't played really poorly this season at some point. Nolan Freeze, terrible snap on a punt, cost us 2 points. Steven Hauska, another low kick on an extra point, gets blocked. His success rate on extra points this year has been abysmal. Field goal's not great, but decent, but the extra points are killer. John Ryan, not his best season either. I can't even remember who our special teams coach is off the top of my head, but, you know, I'm ready for something different there for sure. The other coordinators, it has to be considered. None of them are doing a great job. Some of them might be doing okay, and some of them have excuses, but none of them are doing a great job. And we're going to learn something next week. I want to win or lose, whatever happens next week against Lions or Packers. I want to figure out if this team is quitting on Pete Carroll, because they might be. I'm not convinced that they're listening to him anymore. They might have just tuned him out. I mean, he's been there a long time. It would not be the most shocking thing in the world if they were finally like, okay, he's been my coach for 6 years. I don't listen to this guy anymore. And next week might tell us a little something about that, because what I saw today in parts made me think of that. What I have seen from Richard Sherman's behavior over the last month has made me think that. And I'm keeping an eye on that, because you do lose your fastball. You do lose your locker room if you stick around long enough. And I'm not saying I'm calling for his head yet, but next week I'll make pregame video for the playoff game for sure, whoever we end up playing, because there's going to be a lot to talk about, and I'm going to want to break it down. But interesting season, guys. Happy with the macro results, but a lot to work on. I'll probably have to make some off-season videos to discuss all the shit that we have to fix. See you guys later.